All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this Forstner bit into our drill press, and I'm going to go ahead and drill out those two circles that I've identified. And for the circles, I did use a stencil so that my circles were pretty good. One of the things that students have a really tough time with when using the drill press is getting the bit in the chuck. They don't realize that these teeth right here line up or match up with the teeth of the chuck key. And so when they're trying to put it in to loosen the chuck, they actually struggle quite a bit with that. So I'm going to go ahead and change the bit. I'm going to go ahead and just do the whole process here and see how this video comes out. So let me get the camera positioned. So I'm going to loosen the chuck to a point where I can then hand loosen it, go in the wrong direction. Get the Forstner bit in there, hand tighten with the chuck key, put the key away so that it doesn't wrap around as the bit spins. I'm going to just make sure that it's in correctly by turning it on. Well, I got to turn the power on. All right, guys, I'll be right back. All right, I have power. I'm going to bring the table up. There's a lot of space here. I'm going to loosen, shimmy this up. That looks pretty good. You'll notice that I have a board under my work. And what that's going to do is that's going to prevent two things. Number one, from my chuck or my bit getting into the table. And it'll also keep the wood from splintering as the bit goes through the wood. So this piece right here looks pretty good. Get that positioned. I'm going to use the clamp to hold my wood into place. Make sure that that looks like a good spot for it. Push down here by the post. Push that lever up. Use the chuck guard between me and the bit. And guess I'm ready to go. All right, turn it off, loosen the clamp, reposition. All right, that should do it. Retighten the clamp. Notice I keep my hand on the wood. That way I can tell if the wood is unstable. It's going to start moving around unexpectedly, and that could be kind of scary and a real problem. So if I needed to stop, when you're going from in a hardwood onto a softwood, you can actually feel the difference on the feed lever. But if I ever did want to set the chuck from being able to go down any further, you do have these stops that you can adjust, and it will stop the chuck from moving any further down. But again, when you're going into a hardwood, then transferring into a softwood, you can actually feel it, know when it's time to stop. But you can use these if you are worried about damaging your table. So, for example, right there, wouldn't let me go down any further. Alright, I got some sawdust that I got to do something with, but you can see now I have my 2 holes drilled, and that's going to help me out a lot on the bandsaw, which I'll talk to you about in just a moment. Okay, off camera I realized that I didn't have a blade on our bandsaw, so I'm currently working on installing that. We tried to use the bandsaw, or this bandsaw, for metal cutting, and it turns out it did a really terrible job. But lucky for us, for robotics team, we were able to order this guy And this guy is a horizontal cutting bandsaw, and it works very similarly, but it allows us to put on a much thicker and more durable blade, whereas our woodworking bandsaw needs a smaller one. If you are installing a blade and you want to know what kind of blade or what kind of curve it's capable of, then you need to pay attention to this chart here, and it will tell you that if you have this installed blade on it, you can expect to be able to cut this curve. So I'm just working with the tension knob right now, trying to get the tension right, and I should be back soon. The lighting over here isn't terrible, so I can't tell for sure if I have the tension correct or not, so I got to play around with that. One scary thing about this particular bandsaw is that when you turn it off, it continues to spin and spin and spin and spin. In fact, I probably won't let it spin all the way down before stopping the video. But somebody who is in a loud wood shop like this one, if the air cleaners and dust collectors are on, might come over and not realize that it's still going, even though it's actually off. So if you were to use this bandsaw, I would be very mindful to tell you several times that you've got to be really careful on it. So it did finally stop, and so I'm going to adjust the blade supports to about 1/8 of an inch over the work. That way, as I'm pushing against the blade, there's something behind it on the portion of the blade with no teeth that will support it and keep it from bending and breaking too much. If I was to break the blade, I would have to back away, turn the machine off, and alert the teacher, preventing anyone else from using it. Apparently, there is a chance that if the blade guard was high enough, that the blade could spill out in this direction, which is why Mr. Wheeler, the tech ed teacher prior to me, put this box here to keep people from standing in that space. Also, there is this little stop here, now that my blade is installed, that I can put there that will also help with that. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting. Keep my hands away from the blade. I'm going to avoid reaching behind it. If there's something in the space that's distracting or disrupting me, I'm just going to use a piece of scrap and wipe that away. So I'm just going to do the first cut just because this won't make for a very exciting video watching me do it the entire time. I'll stop the video, I'll complete my cutting, and then I'll show you my final product. So here goes. So I cut myself to my first hole. That allows me to rotate and spin my blade. Alright, so that's my first cut. I've still got some work to do. You can see I wasn't dead on perfect here. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this and I'll show you what I got when I'm done. Okay, I'm done cutting. I have this shape. You can see that I'm not dead on perfect in some places, but that's going to be okay because I'm going to be able to do some filing. I am slightly frustrated. If you can see, I did get a little bit of chipping. When I used the drill press, I probably should have used a brand new board underneath. I was trying to avoid waste, and this frequently happens. It's one of the frustrating things about working with hardwood is that it's a little bit brittle. It's certainly durable, but there are certain steps that you do with it that can cause some chipping. And so I'll just have to file and sand that and try to make it look the best that I can. It's a frequent problem, but that's the bandsaw and that's the drill press part of this assignment. So I think that'll do it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and get set up to do some filing. Probably not sanding this series of videos.